your panic attacks will not go away unless you do some kind of exposure. So it asks you to pay attention to the thing that stresses you out while simultaneously kind of distracting you by asking you to pay attention to those meticulous little details. You're going to watch it and you're going to observe it. So wherever it is on your body, you're going to observe it. Is there depth to that sensation? Or is it just on the surface of your skin? Is it squeezing? Which word seems to fit the most? If it's a tingling thing, then I'm imagining like a bunch. Panic disorder is composed of two things. One thing is the cognitions, right? So that I covered in other videos. And the other thing are the automated responses. The automated responses that we develop because as a result of having panic attacks. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But quickly, let me give you a recap of what the cognitions, the thoughts are. The thoughts are, these are the worst case scenario, the nightmare scenarios that we think to ourselves that cause our panic attacks. They could be something like, oh no, I hope I don't have another panic attack. That's going to cause a panic attack. They could be, oh my God, I hope I don't die. Oh my God, I hope I don't suffocate to death. Oh my God, I hope I don't get a heart attack. Oh my God, I hope I don't lose my mind, right? These are the types of thoughts that I'm talking about. These are the cognitions. And I talk about that in another video. So if you're curious about that, go check out my other videos. Here we're focusing on the automated responses, right? So everybody, every single person who has panic disorder has automated responses to how they naturally feel in their bodies. So our bodies have just natural things. They do natural things. They feel a certain way during certain situations. For example, doing a stress response. Let's say you're doing an exam. You have an exam and you're going to get stressed out because you are worried about your performance. You got to perform well, right? You're trying to be a high performer. So your anxiety, adrenaline, it wakes you up, makes you perform well, and that feels a certain way in your body. Unfortunately, that's the same or a very similar feeling to what panic attacks feel like. So now, every time you have a slight stress response, you are likely triggering your panic attack. So how does this go? It goes something like this. You're late to a meeting, let's say, right? You're late to a meeting, so now you're stressed out, and now you're starting to feel a little bit of tension somewhere. That tension kind of reminds you of what panic feels like. It's not fully, it may not even be conscious. You might not even be consciously aware of it, but it kind of reminds what a full-blown panic attack feels like. Now, you're either consciously or unconsciously saying to yourself, some people are aware of this, some people consciously say to themselves, and you might relate to this, oh no, I hope I don't get a panic attack. Boom, you're now entering the path to having a panic attack. So what we have to do is we have to desensitize ourselves. We have to stop ourselves from having stress responses to our stress responses. Right? Does that make sense? That's what a panic attack is. A panic attack is an ever-escalating stress response to your stress. Whoops. Sorry, I hope you didn't hear that. Panic attacks are ever-escalating stress responses to your stress responses, right? So how do we do this? That's the question that we're going to tackle in this video. How do we desensitize ourselves to these things? It's kind of no different than what you would do with phobias, except that you have to do this by focusing on your body. What I'm going to walk you through is going to be two parts to this. Part number one is identifying the troubling spots in your body. Part number two is desensitizing them, so desensitizing yourself to them. So the first part is identifying those spots. It's just a scan. Scan your body very carefully from head to toe and notice where you feel resistance, where you feel resistance is such a vague word. Let me use a different word. Where you feel hesitation about paying attention to that spot. So if let's say you're scanning yourself from head to toe, and somewhere in your throat you notice, "Ooh, I don't like paying attention to that spot." You say to yourself, "Nah, let me not look at this. Let me go to the next one." If you notice yourself avoiding that spot, or if you notice yourself, I guess a more direct sign would be if you notice yourself getting anxious when you pay attention to that spot, boom, you got yourself your trigger. Let's first start by doing a head to toe scan. I might do this a little bit faster because normally in therapy, I'm looking at how much time I've already killed by doing this video. Normally in therapy, I do this very, very slowly because I want to be meticulous. Because a lot of times people, not a lot of times, often enough, let's say 10 to 20% of the time, people don't have a very good awareness of their own body, of how their body relates to their own panic attacks. So by slowing down, I'm able to capture the little nuance that is sometimes missed. But for the sake of this video, for the sake of keeping it short, I'm gonna speed it up. So let's get into it. Sit comfortably. I'm gonna give you a tip. If you're not feeling anything in your body right now, if I ask you right now, hey, what do you feel in your body right now? And you tell me nothing, don't move. Just freeze. Typically, not moving exacerbates the little signals that we feel in our bodies. The reason why it does that, especially for stress response signals, the reason why that happens is because we do, how like when you shake your leg, right now I'm shaking my leg. When you shake your leg, that's dissipating. That's a dissipatory behavior. It dissipates that extra energy. So by focusing on not moving, you're blocking the escape of all that extra energy, and that's gonna make your sensations more pronounced. So that can help you identify where your troubling spots, where your automatically conditioned spots are. So if you want to do that, let's start with that. That's a version, it's a flavor of this exercise that we can do. We can just start with freeze, stop moving, and focus on your body. So I would suggest you close your eyes, and so that you can cut off your visual sense, so that you're not wasting your attention on your visual senses, and focus on what your body feels like. It also helps if you're in a quiet setting, okay? So do that now. If you are aware of something that's already troubling you, some sort of a sensation in your body that's causing you anxiety, that's associated with anxiety, and you're aware of it now, you can pause, you can fast forward in this video. But just for the sake of knowing how to do this on days where you don't feel anything and you want to identify troubling spots, stick around because that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so now we're going to scan from top of our heads to the bottom of our feet. Focus on the very top of your head, right here, okay? And slowly, pay attention to this, pay attention to that spot. What does it feel like? Do you feel any pressure? Do you feel any tickling? Everything counts. Itching, pain, pressure, pulling, pushing, anything matters here, okay? And work your way down. If you find something, maybe that's a spot to investigate, maybe it's not. But keep working down. Pay attention to common areas where people typically hold their attention. So I usually pause my clients right there. I say like, okay, right here, let's just pause here. Common areas here is sides of the head, right? That's usually where people get tensions here. So pause there. Notice if anything is causing you your anxiety to rise. Notice if you're feeling a little bit more stressed out. Notice if you start saying to yourself, I don't want to pay attention to this spot. This is a really uncomfortable spot to pay attention to. Check in the back of your head. That's another common spot. But always check in between what I'm saying, right? So I'm saying back of your head, I'm saying sides of your head. Check in between, kind of like halfway between those points, just to be extra careful, right? Just to be extra cautious. Keep working your way down. Your temples, your jaw. Your jaw is very common. Your eyes. Check with your eyes. What do your eyes feel like? Is there some sort of a sensation that you're aware of that's making you feel uncomfortable? Is there a feeling in your forehead somewhere? Your nose, your lips, your mouth, the sides of your mouth, your throat, right? So pause the video because I'm moving very quickly. Normally I would not move this this quickly. So pause the video and just take the time to really investigate each and every part of your body that I've mentioned so far. Continue to work downwards. Check the back of your neck. Don't forget the back of your neck, your throat. A lot of times when people have fears around not being able to breathe, there's sensations in the throat that can set them off. So if that's one of your fears, check there. A shortcut also to finding where your trouble spot is, just ask yourself, what is my worst fear when I have a panic attack? Like if it's something about you dying and it's about something not being right with your health, then where is that spot that's not gonna be right? That's usually where you're gonna get stressed out, right? Keep walking your way downwards. Look at your shoulders, look at your chest, Look at your back, upper back, lower back, stomach, on and so forth. Check. Usually that's where, for most people, things are. They're between your lower stomach, your lower abdomen, and the top of your head. That's usually where most things are located. There are some individuals, it's much rarer, but for them, things are located below the waist. So anything below the waist. So go ahead and do that. I think you get the idea. Go muscle group by muscle group, section by section, until you reach the bottom of your feet. If there's nothing, then let me know in the comment section. There might be some other stuff that I can suggest. But for like 99% of you, you should be able to identify something at this point. So I'm going to assume that you've identified a spot on your body where you feel not comfortable paying attention to. You know, maybe you don't want to pay attention to. Maybe you say to yourself, I don't like looking at this. Or maybe you feel anxiety when you look at this. Maybe it causes thoughts to pop up that make you stressed out, right? This all counts as a sign that you found your spot. Next thing we're going to do is the desensitization component that I'm going to suggest. So the way I do this is I ask you this. Okay, for this next part, you are like an investigator. You are going to be like a biologist who's out there in a safari studying lions and zebras and whatever. What does a biologist do in those situations? If you're going to be studying a wild animal, are you going to walk up right next to it and start messing with it, start poking with a stick? No, you're not going to do that, right? You're going to stand far, far away, looking through your binoculars, just looking at that animal and quietly observing what it's doing. You're not going to make noise. You're not going to move. Because if you move, you might startle it. You're not going to interfere. You're not going to interfere because you want to see it in its natural habitat. That's what you're doing with this exercise. That's how you're going to approach that sensation. You're not going to interfere. You're going to let that sensation do whatever it wants to do while you quietly stand in the back, looking from far away with your binoculars at what it's doing. So, and also, what else does a biologist do? A biologist is going to be very, very patient, right? So you might be there with your binoculars looking at let's say a lion, and the lion, all it's doing is just laying down. And you might say, if you're not patient, you might say to yourself, it's just laying down, right? But that's generalizing. A good scientist, a good investigator would look at the details, would look at the nuance of what's happening. A good investigator would notice that lion flicks its tail every now and then. He or she might ask themselves, how often does the lion flick the tail? At what rate does the lion flick the tail? How far does the lion flick the tail? Is there any other movement that I can pick up? Maybe it blinks. How often does it blink? Does it seem like the lion blinks harder during certain times? More frequently? Is there a correlation between blinking and flicking its tail, right? You see, it gets into the nitty-gritty details, and that's what you got to do with your sensation. You're going to approach it with that attitude. You're going to watch it, and you're going to observe it. So wherever it is on your body, you're going to observe it, and you're going to look at it, and you're going to ask yourself, what is happening? What is that sensation? What does that feeling feel like? Can I draw a boundary around that sensation? Can I, like a map, can I draw like a map around it? Can I get like a 3D view of it? Is there depth to it? So let's just say it's somewhere here in your chest. Is there depth to that sensation, right? Or is it just on the surface of your skin? Is it your skin that you're feeling it on? Or is it deeper underneath? If it's feeling deeper underneath, how deep does it go? Right? Can you get a 3D map of it, like a 3D projection, if you can imagine that? Does it have a color? Does a color seem to fit that sensation? Does it feel like if it feels like a tension of some kind, is it something that's pushing in or pushing in? Is it pulling out? Is it wherever it is, right? So you ask yourself these questions. Is it pulling out? Is it pushing in? Is it squeezing? Which word seems to fit the most for you? Is it ripping? Is it a pain? If it is a pain, what kind of a pain is it? Is it a tingly thing? How would you describe it? If it tingles, if it's a tingling thing, then I'm imagining like a bunch of like little sparkly things that just kind of like, right? That's what tingles, I guess, are. How fast are these things tapping, tingling, right? Is it tingling super fast? Is it tingling slower? How big are the tingles, each individual tingles? Can you spot each individual tingle? I'm talking details, baby. Like, we are talking about details, all right? So get that detailed. That's what I want you to do. What this actually does is it asks you to focus on the details. So it asks you to pay attention to the thing that stresses you out, while simultaneously kind of distracting you by asking you to pay attention to those meticulous little details. It also distances you a little bit because of how I asked you to do this exercise. I asked you to become this very non-biased observer from a distance, right? So you're gonna do this, and you're gonna continue to observe it, and you're gonna steady it. So you've hopefully by now, by the way, hopefully by now you have identified some things about it, some attributes about it, right? Maybe the color, maybe the shape, maybe the pushing, the squeezing, the pulling, maybe a sound. Maybe there's a sound associated with it. So I'll give you an example. During a full-blown panic attack, I would best describe the sound as like a high energy screech kind of thing, like with my whole body just screeching. That's probably how I would describe it. Maybe you have a sound associated with that. Those are all different ways of describing it. So do that. And next thing I want you to do is just stay with it. Once you feel like you've identified a bunch of attributes of it. Ooh, I missed an attribute. Very common attribute. Is there a texture to it? Does a sensation have a texture? You know what I mean? If it doesn't, that's okay. By the way, if any of them, they don't have an attribute that... If I suggested an attribute and you can't, doesn't make sense to you for that sensation, that's okay. It just maybe doesn't fit. But okay, so now that you've identified a handful of them, the next step is to stay with it patiently. Observe the relationships between them. Okay, observe it. Where is it? What is it doing? Is it when it does this? Does the other thing change? What would happen if I just stayed with this for just stay with it? Let me just stay with it for like 5 minutes. Just keep on looking at it. Will it change? Things always change. That's a cool thing. When you pay attention to your body, things always change. Curious, how is it changing? Now, is it moving? Sometimes, as you observe this, the sensation will move. Maybe it will be pronounced in one section of your body, but the next minute it's going to be pronounced in another section of your body. Maybe it will quite literally creep away. Maybe it will become less pronounced of a feeling and fades out a little bit. Maybe it spreads out a little bit. What I want you to do as you observe it changing, because as you watch it, as you observe it over time and you're patient with yourself, you're going to notice it change. As it changes, allow it. Right? So that's one thing we got to be very careful of, that we stay in the good scientist's mindset, that we don't interfere. When it wants to move, let it move. Give it the freedom to move. Okay? And watch. Watch what happens. What happens? Allow it. Give it full freedom. That's what you do. You want to do this until it starts calming down. Now, don't chase it calming down. Don't chase a reduction in anxiety, because paradoxically what you're going to do is you're going to increase your anxiety. You want to stay in a patient mindset, exploratory mindset for as long as you need to. It could be minutes. It could be a total of hours. You're not going to do this for hours, but a total. You're going to come back to this exercise a bunch of times. For a total, it could be hours. Could even be days. You got to be patient, right? That's what you got to do. And eventually, your reaction to observing these symptoms is going to decrease. Another reason why it's going to decrease is because familiarity brings comfort. You probably have heard this before. The more you really know what your symptoms of stress feel like, the less overwhelming they will feel during a panic attack. So one of the things that makes a panic attack worse is the overwhelming like blitzkrieg of feelings that we feel in our bodies. So by knowing exactly what each feeling feels like, it's no longer a mystery. You can wrap your mind around what's happening much more easily. It's not as confusing and overwhelming, right? So that's another nice little benefit of doing this exercise, okay? So that's that for this video. Hit the like button, subscribe, leave your comments, and stick around because I'm covering pretty much everything there is to know about treating your panic disorders. And I will see you in the next video.